One battle after another. Wow, it's been a battle for me just to sit down and actually get this review up, and I'm looking forward to talking about this film. I hope that you guys have already seen it. If not, I believe that this video might compel you to actually go out, spend the money on a ticket, and see it in an actual theater. I've been trying to get this review up. I saw it twice. I saw it maybe a week after it opened, and then I waited to see it again in VistaVision. It was filmed in VistaVision. It's a totally different format. It's huge, large, huge. And that format, there's only 3 theaters if you don't count the actual theater in LA, like where the actual film, whatever, that studio actually owns. There's only 3 actual theaters you can go to in the world, and I got to see it in one of them in New York City. So I saw it the second time, and then I kind of let this marinate for a while before I got my review up. So a little bit late, but here we go. One battle after another. That Guy Talks Movies. Let's get into it. Welcome to That Guy Talks Movies. I'm That Guy Talking Movies again, and today we're talking One Battle After Another. Latest P.T. Anderson film, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Chase Infinity, Sean Connery, Benicio del Toro, Tiana Taylor, Regina Hall. Just an absolutely sort of mind-blowing flick that I believe will be a strong contender for Film of the Year at the end of the year, along with Sinners. I think we'll get into that in a minute. But I saw this the first time, and when I came out of the theater and when I discussed it with somebody else, I discussed it with a friend of mine, what my thoughts were, and I was kind of not sure. I enjoyed it. I knew visually as a film and the way P.T. Anderson works that it was a good picture. I just wasn't 100% sure about what I thought about the content and the story and what was going on. Also, performances I knew were absolutely fantastic. I just wasn't sure what I thought in relation to the other P.T. Anderson films that historically I have been very fond of. So starting with Boogie Nights, Punch Drunk Love, not on my top of my list, but Boogie Nights definitely being there, Magnolia being one of my favorite P.T. Anderson films, and for sure There Will Be Blood. There are a few others, The Master, Inherent Vice. I just thought that Magnolia, Boogie Nights, and There Will Be Blood are my favorites. So with that said, I went into this and sat down, and again, I saw it the first time and was thinking, oh, okay. Saw it the second time, and I got it. Totally got it. And that's what it might take for a film. Sometimes films, some of the best films require that second viewing for it to really, and it requires you to marinate on it. It requires you to think a little bit on it. It's sort of like a David Lynch sort of thing where you really need to think about it and you really need to watch a couple of times before it really, really resonates with you. And that's a good thing. That doesn't mean it's a bad film. That means that that film has a lot going on and it's doing its job. It's not just something you can throw away when you leave the theater and forget all about it. So getting into this film, this is a film about a revolutionary group of people. Leonardo DiCaprio is part of that. If I read the actual thing, it's One Battle After Another, 2025 American action thriller film written, produced, and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. It's inspired by a 1990 novel called Vineland by Thomas Pynchon. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, Regina Hall, Tiana Taylor, and Chase Infinity. Ghetto Pat Calhoun and Perfidia Beverly Hills are members of a far-left militant group, the French 75. While breaking out detained immigrants from Otay Mesa Detention Center, Perfidia sexually humiliates the commanding officer Stephen J. Lockjaw, who develops a fascination with her. Pat and Perfidia become lovers at as the French 75 carry out attacks on politicians, officers, banks, and the power grid. When Stephen catches Perfidia planting a bomb, he lets her go after she agrees to have sex with him at a hotel. Anyway, bottom line is, there's a whole revolutionary group of people doing a bunch of revolutionary things, and it's sort of a reflection of what's happening in current society, although this was, P.T. Anderson been working on this for years now. I believe like 10, 15 years he's been working on this, and these issues still plagued America and American history for a long period of time when it comes to immigration issues, when it comes to racism, it comes to all these different things that affect society and why there would be revolutionary groups standing up against them. So this is the backdrop for that. And then what happens is Perfidia Beverly Hills, I'm going to be doing spoilers, by the way, so I should probably just say that now. If you haven't seen the film, click off, because I'm going to talk about this as if you've already seen it and you're just wanting to hear my opinion, my take on it. So forgive me, but spoilers ahead, so click off now if you don't want to hear them. So what's this movie really like? What's happening in this movie? So the chain of events that set things off in the beginning, the French 75, this is Leonardo DiCaprio, who plays Pat Calhoun, and Tiana Taylor plays Perfidia Beverly Hills. They're part of the French 75, this revolutionary group. And in the beginning, they wind up releasing or freeing some detainees in an immigrant center, a holding center or something along those lines. And we start to see the relationship between Leonardo DiCaprio, between Pat Calhoun and Perfidia Beverly Hills, played by Tiana Taylor, again, played brilliantly, by the way, and we'll get more into that later. But they end up getting pregnant and having a child. And the film fast forwards to 16 years later, and Perfidia Beverly Hills basically left when the baby was a baby, maybe a month or two old when she leaves, and she breaks out and is like, I'm not with this. I can't be a mother. I need to be this freedom thing, and I need to go handle my business, and I'm out. So she takes off and disappears and leaves Pat Calhoun, Leonardo DiCaprio, with Chase Infinity's character, the baby. 16 years later. So 16 years later, we fast forward and we find out that Bob is living in the woods, or Pat Calhoun's living in the woods, and is this drunken drug addict kind of guy trying to raise a 16-year-old girl. And their past catches up with them when Stephen J. Lockjaw, who is the militant operator or commander of ICE or whatever it is, some military group, actually catches up with them and is looking to get the daughter, right? He's looking to find Leonardo DiCaprio's character and find Chase Infinity. So let's get into what this movie means to me and sort of how I feel about it, right? I don't want to go through the entire plot line and go scene for scene. I'm just not going to do that. I think I just want to talk about it from the perspective of what I see and what I felt watching this. I think if I have to summarize the whole thing, and I really just succinctly put this together, this is a film about the position of Black and brown people, minorities, or disenfranchised people within our country, and the forces that work against them and the forces that fight for them, and on both sides, right? So Leonardo DiCaprio's character, Pat Calhoun, in this particular case, is a white man fighting alongside Black women, Black revolutionaries, and fighting against the system, fighting against racism, fighting against immigration, xenophobia, and all these things, right? And Leo's character in this is along for the ride, but he's not necessarily impacted by the actual things they're fighting for, if that makes any sense. So it's sort of the white man involved in a civil rights movement back in the day who actually goes home and closes his door and doesn't actually feel the effects, while he might have empathy for and understand and genuinely in his heart be a white man or a white woman or whatever it is at that time and during civil rights. While they might feel that way and want change, they're technically, when they go to the supermarket or when they walk down the street or when they go into a school system with their kids, they're not really affected by it. And I feel that this movie reflected that, right? This movie sort of put Pat Calhoun, this is ghetto Pat Calhoun, this is Leonardo DiCaprio's character. It basically, that's who he represented. He represented a white man who wants to do good, who likes Black women. There's also a line that directly alludes to that fact, like, oh, what do you think I'm doing here? I love Black women, right? And that's kind of a thing as well. We'll get more into that later when we talk about Stephen J. Lockjaw, which is Sean Penn's character. But that my take on it is that this whole film is watching a white man, a person with a good heart, a good soul, who's put into a situation where he's actively engaged in the movement, but he can disengage whenever he wants because it's not really his movement. Now, the fact that he has a child with a Black woman that's part of that movement, it roots him more in that movement. It roots him more in that particular thing. But while he's raising her for 16 years, he's not involved in the revolution anymore anyway. He's just a white man raising a Black woman, raising a young lady, a Black woman, Black young lady. And he's got the option of drugging out, zoning out, just not being involved, while she is still very much has a part of like revolutionary blood within her. And this is reflected, I'm jumping through, but this is reflected in the end of the film. At the end of the film, so I'm giving spoilers. I hope, if you've seen this film, then fine, and you're hearing my take on it. If you've not seen it and you don't want spoilers, just click off now. But the end of the film, she actually is, once everything kind of wraps up, she's taking off to go. She gets a phone call and she tunes into the radio and finds out there's a protest or something to go be part of, and she's leaving. And Leonardo's on the couch getting high or drinking or watching TV or whatever he's doing. And he's like, all right, be safe. Like, go ahead, right? He's not even part of this anymore. He's not involved. He's basically has a daughter who's staying involved, but he can sit on the couch and just relax. He's not a black man. He's not a minority. He's not somebody who's affected by these things, by one battle after another that minority groups, immigrants, and people in our country have traditionally faced. He's not part of those battles. He has his own battles to deal with, but he's still on the outside of the situation. For example, the scenes with Benicio del Toro, when he goes to Benicio del Toro for help, yeah, he's trying to locate his daughter and get his daughter back. So I just want to be sure I'm not implying that he doesn't have love and care for his daughter. He does, obviously, and he stayed to raise her. But when he goes to find Benicio del Toro's character, Benicio is dealing with an immigration situation in the moment that it becomes this chaotic thing happening in the background and action sequences that are happening around Leonardo DiCaprio's character. Yet Leonardo DiCaprio's character is sort of removed from what's going on around him, but he's concerned with himself and him dealing with getting a gun and contact and getting his phone charged. So it plays off as hilarious most of the time in this movie. Meanwhile, there's really serious stuff happening in the background. So again, I think from a perspective of looking at thematically what's happening here is you have one battle after another being waged by people who suffer from these things on a regular basis, while Leonardo's character is able to sort of navigate in and out at will. And it's sort of hilarious because it doesn't really affect him. So I don't want to imply that Leonardo DiCaprio's character or any white person in that situation where they are genuinely providing their soul, their resources, and providing, like, they actually have empathy for other people and they see all humans as we're all equal and they don't have any bit of racism. I'm not suggesting that that's the case. I'm suggesting that while you can go protest, at the end of the day, when you go home, you're not a black man or a black woman or an immigrant, a brown person, a Latino who's being affected by the same laws and the same stigma and the same racism and prejudice that has essentially plagued our people for a very long time, right? So that's the way I saw this, especially the second time I watched it. There were literally scenes where it just seems as if Leonardo DiCaprio is kind of spaced out. He's involved, but he's not really involved. He doesn't have to be involved. It affects him different. So that's how I see that particular character. Now, moving on to Stephen J. Lockjaw and moving on to the white element of this, the racial element of this whole thing. First of all, the performance by Sean Penn, we're definitely, I see no way he doesn't get an Oscar nomination. As far as winning, it's quite possible. But there's no way in hell he doesn't get nominated. I will put money on that right now. His performance in this movie, he plays a ridiculously horrible, racist, misogynist, xenophobic / militant white guy of the like militant guy with a walk that is absolutely memorable. I think people for Halloween will try to imitate that walk and that haircut. And that's how memorable it is. And he did a fantastic, this is one of his best performances of all time, period. Sean Penn, shout out to Sean Penn. This is literally one of his best performances of all time. And it's interesting to watch his character because he represents, from early on in the film, we see his love affair, his fascination, his fantasy, his desire for a black woman, for black flesh, which if we go back through the history of the world and go back through American slavery and the slave trade, specifically the African slave trade, Atlantic slave trade, and we look at the numerous amount of rape and pillage and what took place here with white slave owners and the desire for the African flesh, for women, for our women. And this is something that's continued for years. There's plenty of white men that want the sweet nectar of our lovely black women. That's not something foreign or something sort of, random. So in this, it's emphasized and it is absolutely highlighted with Stephen J. Lockjaw being this guy, even though on the outside, he appears to be this racist guy against, and he's trying to be this purist. Deep down inside, he's got a love for black women, and he's only acting in the interest of his own whiteness, his own skin, based on what he's told or what he's supposed to believe. And you can see that and you can kind of feel that with his character, that there's a thing about him that just wants to belong. There's almost a Patrick Bateman sort of esque feel to him. Like there's a scene in the car where Christian Bale and Reese Witherspoon are going to a party, and she says to him, I don't know why you don't just quit that job or whatever, like why you work there anyway. And he turns to her and says, because I want to fit in. So it's like this admission of, as silly as all these things are, as crazy as this lifestyle might be, what I don't agree with, I want to be part of it. And it's kind of where Sean Penn's character is motivated from in this film. And one of the interesting parts of it is the racism and classism that's explored here by P.T. Anderson as well. Penn's character, Stephen J. Lockjaw, is trying to get into this secret society of ultra white supremacists who believe that, you know, they have to have 100% pure native blood, which is ridiculous because nothing in America is theirs whatsoever. Right. So I guess they're going by some, you know, sort of like Gangs of New York. Daniel Day-Lewis's character, you know, the true Americans, you know, not an Italian, not Irish, and nothing along those lines, just these pure Americans that with that bloodline. So this special little group led by Tony Goldwyn and company, these funny white men who believe they're going to, you know, rule the world, which is kind of a scary thing to deal with as well in this film. But I'll get back to that in a second. But Lockjaw, Stephen J. Lockjaw, again, Penn's character winds up showing up for a meeting and they bring him through a back door. And it's specifically referenced where Tony Goldwyn tells him, sorry about, you know, having to bring you up this way, but my daughter's being married and we thought you'd be more comfortable. There is an obvious reference to the fact that traditionally in America, black performers, entertainers, black people would be bought through back doors if they were even allowed in a particular establishment, if they were allowed in a hotel, if they were allowed into a restaurant or a nightclub or a bar, lounge, whatever it was. Even if they were the main act, they had to come through back doors, come through the kitchen, come through the basement. And it's interesting to watch a bunch of white supremacists tell another white man, yeah, well, you have to come through the back door. So essentially, the history of America, a lot of it has been classism and elitism. It wasn't even racism. Racism was something that reared its head because England, France, and Spain figured out ways to separate the races and create one white class versus black, which is a whole nother history lesson, but I'm not going to get into that right now. But it really comes down to, I don't care if you're white. It comes down to how much money you have and if you're on our level. And Stephen J. Lockjaw represents nothing but like a physical sort of apparatus that they can manipulate and use, but he's not essentially part of them. Now he's trying to get into that club, which is why he's trying to do everything possible to make sure he gets in. And that's his whole motivation for the thing. But I wanted to touch on that because I thought that was an important element here as well. The whole classism, elitism kind of thing, in addition to the racism, the bigotry, and everything else that's taking place in this film. Going back to this element of the white supremacists and that group, it is also interesting that most of those scenes with these gentlemen in this room are hilarious. And P.T. Anderson pulls notes from Tarantino when Tarantino did Django Unchained. And Tarantino was very specific about making all the white supremacists, all the actual slave owners, plantation owners, and all of these people disgusting, laughable characters. They were not powerful men. They were not to be taken serious. He stripped all of that away from them and sort of pulled away the veneer of their godliness and their so-called greatness by making them laughable characters. If you look at the KKK scene with Don Johnson and Jonah Hill, that scene where they're going to go get Django and Dr. Schultz, you see how funny it is. They reduce it to nothing. And in this film, the back entrance, the back rooms, and the little secret meeting they have, the name of their club, I think it's called the Christmas something club, and they worship Saint Nick or something. I don't know what the history of that is. Perhaps some white supremacist can tell me. I don't know, but it's hilarious. And P.T. Anderson, once again, just like Tarantino, reduces them to comedy, to being a joke, because that's essentially what they are. I think that if we go back to the actual performances in this film, so out right off the top, like I said, Sean Penn, incredible. Leo does his job, incredible. I think, and I might be going a stretch on this one, but Tiana Taylor, the time that she's on screen, I think she's got maybe 20 minutes on screen here, 20, 25 minutes, but Tiana Taylor's character, I would easily submit for a Best Supporting Actress nomination. She really I mean, she just goes the distance in this film, and I think it's memorable. It's not a 20, 25-minute performance that you can forget about and just fills in for something. She actually really owns that character, Perfidia Beverly Hills, and it is off the chain without coming off as off the chain, if that makes any sense, because it's a very, very loud, very bombastic character that she plays. And she plays a very gangster role with a lot of passion, a lot of sexual energy, and a lot of stuff happening. And she does it also convincingly, where it doesn't look like just an overacted performance. And I think a lesser actor would have been more obvious that they're trying too hard. But Tiana Taylor here, God bless her. I think there's an Oscar nomination waiting for her as well. I think Benicio del Toro is Benicio del Toro, as typically you can rely on him. He does a fantastic job. He has that gravitas on screen, no matter what's going on, no matter who's standing next to him. It could be Leonardo DiCaprio, doesn't make a difference. Benicio del Toro is going to stand out as that dude who's got such a calm about him. And in this role in particular, he's supposed to have that calm. Again, and I think that was to emphasize the fact that, look, brother, you're running around hysterically. I'm calm, I'm at ease, even though we're moving immigrants and hiding, and we've got a raid coming. I got this all handled. The sensei has this all handled. Why? Because we're used to this. You don't understand it because you're a white man on the outside. Yeah, you have a black daughter, but you've been out of this for 16 years. And even when you were in it, you were never really part of this. So when you watch Benicio del Toro navigate that entire scene and how he executes what he's doing while in the background, DiCaprio's going nuts trying to get his phone charged and trying to get figure out passwords. Benicio del Toro is smooth as hell, but that's a battle that he's been in before. So he's able to remain calm because he's used to it. He has it all figured out. And that's something that I think speaks volumes in this film. If when you really pay attention to it, that's what you get. It's not just a story about this guy and having a black child and being part of a revolutionary, the French 75, and being part of it and then trying to escape the life. And then 16 years later, his past catches up with him and Stephen J. Lockjaw is looking for him. It's so much more than that. It's so much more than that. And I think I could probably talk about the film for another 20, 25 minutes. And maybe I'll do a longer edition of this when I actually have a conversation with someone else and we discuss the film on like a live chat or something like that. What else do I have to say about it? The actual, I think it's, what's his name? It does the music for this. Johnny Greenwood, who did the There Will Be Blood score, where you've got that pulsating sort of rhythmic thing happening here. And it is absolutely brilliant. Not sure if it's going to get an Oscar nomination, but it could eke in there. And I wouldn't question it. As far as the editing, the cinematography, the way this was filmed, fantastic. I just think it's going to get nominations for Best Picture of the Year. I think nomination for cinematography. I think Johnny Greenwood could get the Best Score. I'm pretty sure, again, Sean Penn gets Best Actor nomination. Tiana Taylor gets a Best Supporting Actress nomination. So we will see what happens. But I think this is a very worthwhile film seeing in the theater. And I don't know if I discussed it. I did discuss it in the beginning. I did get to see this on a larger format on actual VistaVision in a proper theater. And it did make a difference. The first time I saw it, like I said, I was impressed, but wasn't sure what to make of the film. The second time I saw it, between the format and between really allowing this to marinate and really to penetrate me and to really think about it, how profound this actual picture is, it really did the job. There are some visuals in this that are fantastic. There's like a scene where they're going up and down these hills in California, and it's absolutely mesmerizing. You kind of get like a little dizzy watching it, but it is mesmerizing to watch. What else can I talk about when it comes to this film? I think that's pretty much it. I just think this was a film that explored something in a totally different way. It's not, let me just end with this. I've heard people say, and I've seen some reviews where people talk about it being this woke thing, and you're putting obviously the ICE raids and the things that are happening in our current America and this landscape. We could say that this is reflecting that, right? I understand that. But I feel like this is not a movie that's slamming you over the head with some woke message telling you, but like immigration is wrong, illegal, all this stuff, right? Like ICE raids are bad and this is all wrong. I don't think it's doing that. I think it touches on the subject matter that's been here for a very long time, long before Trump, long before any of these situations. Like, I feel like this is bringing up situations that Black and brown people, minorities, marginalized people in our country face on a regular basis and have been facing for centuries. So I think it just shows the perspective of how we deal with those things one, day after day, one battle after another, one thing happening. As far as I also want to touch on one other thing when it comes to the sexualization of the black woman in this film, because I heard somebody talk about it from a perspective that was really, I don't think they understood it. But there's Tiana Taylor's whole thing with Stephen J. Lockjaw, which is Sean Penn's character. And it starts off very early in the beginning. And she has a sexual relationship with him. If you watch the film, it is part of the pain and suffering of the black woman and the sort of the exploitation of her and the sense of her needing to do what was necessary in order to continue her revolutionary charge, like doing what she needed to do. And Sean Penn puts her in that position of like, if you want to continue doing this, here's what you got to do. And as a black woman, she actually gave into that. Now, one could argue, well, doesn't that make her bad, or doesn't it make her like, what does that make her? And I'm like, no, I think what you're witnessing here is what many black women, many of our ancestors went through the course of time, through slavery and after slavery, in order to keep their job. The amount of times where women had to decide between feeding their children and taking care of themselves or losing their home versus some executive, racist white dude with a thing for black women made a proposition to her. Did she sell herself out? Yeah. Can we argue the point that, well, you gave in? Yeah. But at the same point, you're going to tell a woman who's got starving children at home, and we're dealing with the racist history of this country. Like, that's kind of what happens here with Tiana Taylor's character. And there's one quick scene that sort of gives it away, where she was loyal to Leonardo DiCaprio's character, but when she does what she does with Sean Penn, she's walking with Leo and she looks totally disgraced and feels she feels humiliated, and she feels as if she betrayed him. So you can see the guilt on her. And I thought that was interesting, and I wanted to talk about it because, again, I've seen other people discuss it from such a surface level of thinking that it was just some disgusting thing or some random reason to show a black woman having engaged, and being engaged with a white man like that. And it was more to it than that. So I wanted to talk about it. Anyway, that's it. That Guy Talks Movies, one battle after another. I think it was a brilliant film. I just think it's extraordinarily put together, and the subject matter and the way it's done, it's definitely looking at Oscar time. So I think it's between this film and Sinners for best film of the year. We will see. Anyway, if you like this video, hit that like button. It helps the algorithm. Subscribe if you've not subscribed. The people who watch my videos and stay with me, I appreciate you being here. Let me know in the comments below if you've seen the film and what your thoughts are on this. I mean, am I all over the place when it comes to some of the racial elements and some of the things that I've talked about here? What do you see? What did you feel when you watched this film? And let me know if you got to see it in VistaVision, if you happen to be near one of those theaters. And I will see you on the next That Guy Talks Movies. Peace.